So let's talk about fresh versus frozen. And I'm not talking about food. Hey y'all, welcome back to my YouTube channel, A Bundle of Faith. I'm Narissa, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe below and ring that bell for notifications, honey, because when I tell you this cycle number 2 has so many things going on, I'm not lying. So go ahead and ring that bell for notifications. So let's start off with the updates, right? So I had a endometrial biopsy done to see if my endometritis is gone, and y'all, it's gone, honey. I am so happy. It is all the way gone. The medication that I was put on, doxycycline, cleared it within 14 days. So that is no longer an issue. Praise God. So there's that update. The other update is Kenny's sperm analysis has come in and his sperm look amazing. We have plenty of them for our IVF cycle, so it looks wonderful. She said there should be no problems, and so we're happy about that. And our genetic test came in and we're good. So that's our updates, but let's get into it. Let's talk about fresh and frozen embryo transfers. Honey, we have always done a frozen embryo transfer, right? But this time my doctor said that we can possibly do a fresh embryo transfer. So what does that mean, right? What is that? So let's start from the beginning. Before any transfer, there's a retrieval. And you basically have two options, right? So you have the traditional IVF option where you would take the egg and the sperm and you put them in a dish together and they do their own thing. The sperm finds the egg, fertilization happens. That's the tradition, right? The other option is the ICSI option, which my husband and I are used to because our issue with infertility is male factored. So we need a little help. So we do ICSI, and that means you take the egg and you take the sperm. You take the sperm, you cut the tail off the sperm, and you literally inject the head of the sperm with all of the DNA into the egg, and that's how fertilization happens, right? You would then wait the 3 to 5 days, and they monitor your embryos. For us at our clinic, they play music for our embryos, and on usually day 4 or 5, you get an update on where your embryos are and if they made it to blastocyst, right? So, because that's the goal. So once they get to blastocyst, for us in the past, we've always done frozen. So we decided that we wanted to do PGS testing on our embryos. So they biopsy the embryos and they send it off and test them to make sure that there's no abnormalities with the embryo. All the chromosomes are on point, everything. And once that's determined, they let you know which ones are normal, which ones are abnormal, or mosaic, which we'll talk about later. And they freeze them. So you're able to do a frozen embryo transfer at any time. So whenever you're ready, your doctor feels you're ready, that's when you'll do one because you have frozen embryos. So that's frozen embryo transfer in a nutshell. The aftercare for that is basically the estrogen patches, which you would put on both sides of your stomach, on either sides of your stomach. You switch them off every 3 days. And the estrogen pills and the progesterone and oil patch that you would take literally in your butt. I hate those shots. They're huge and they give me knots. So that's usually the frozen embryo transfer option. Now, the fresh embryo transfer option, which we're able to try now because my AMH levels or my egg reserve levels have come down and my doctor isn't as concerned with hyperstimulation of my ovaries, is a little different. So, fresh embryo transfer, you would go through all the fertilization, getting your embryos to blastocysts. And for me, we're doing a 5-day fresh embryo transfer. So that means that we would have our retrieval, and then 5 days later, they would look and see which embryo looks the best to them, and that would be the embryo that we transfer. So we would do a retrieval. 5 days later, we would do a transfer of the best looking embryo, and the aftercare for that would be the patches and the progesterone suppository. So it's like a gel and you insert it, and that's that process. So it's a little bit different and, in a way, I guess a little messier, but less complicated. Yeah. So that is the main difference between the fresh and the frozen. Now, how do I feel about it? So it's new, right? We've always done the frozen embryo transfer, and now we're doing a fresh embryo transfer, and it's a lot different. I think the whole feeling of not being able to test that one embryo, I guess, has me a little anxious in a way. Not really, but sort of. But the positive is, my husband and I decided to do a genetic screening for traits. So because we can't test the embryo that we're going to do with a fresh transfer, we did a trait screening. So basically, we get this little vial in the mail, and we spit in this vial, and you got to spit to this line with no bubbles, and then there's a liquid in it. You close it down and it literally combines, and you shake it up a little bit and you stick it in the FedEx bag and you send it off or back to the labs. So our clinic uses Invitae laboratories, and so they check and they see if there's any traits or genes that we have that could possibly cause our child to have a disorder, right? So we sent them off, and the results came back as I have zero traits in regards to disorders, and they test 289 genes, right? And then my husband had 3 recessives that came back. So after talking with my doctor, and I still want to do a counseling with their genetic counselor because they have those available, and they want you to kind of talk to them if you have any traits at all, right? So we'll probably set that time up, since my husband has 3 of them. So basically, because I have 0 and he has 3 recessives, the chances of our child having a disorder are a lot slimmer. Now, if it was a time where we did the screening and I had a trait, he had a trait for the same thing, then the possibilities are higher, right? Now, from what I've been reading and looking into, and my doctor has said, basically, because his traits are recessive, it's a possibility that our children might have the trait. So they might be carriers of those specific disorders. And so probably later on, we'll probably have them tested just to see where they stand with that. So when they try and conceive, this isn't an issue. So they're not just in the dark about all this stuff. So those are the main differences between fresh and frozen. And I hope this has helped, guys. And I know it's like different because you're following my journey, and you know, there's so much that comes with it. But I want to thank you all for following. I'm going to have another episode coming up soon about drugs, honey, because when I tell you these drugs I'm on are serious. So tune in for that. And if you haven't already, please check out my last 2 videos so you can catch up, right? The first video is on our journey from the beginning to current, and the next episode is about endometritis, which thankfully is cleared. So If you haven't already, like I said before, please like and subscribe below and ring that bell for notifications, because there's going to be so much more to come. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll talk to you guys again really, really, really soon, because honey, we have a whole retrieval. Yeah, next week it's coming up. So talk to you guys later, and thank you for tuning in. Bye, y'all.